One of the scariest things an individual can do is learn how to kick themselves upside down in the inverted position, something we call the handstand push-up or handstand hold position. So what we want to do is create a progression for our coaches and an understanding with our athletes of what the base skill is and how to advance that skill, that we can constantly keep advancing the skill of the handstand infinitely. We can make these things harder and harder. We also recognize that any exercise, no matter how awesome and cool it is, done on the wall is still a modification. It's a modification for that same exercise done off the wall. So eventually we want to get athletes to understand that the wall is a safety net, and we want to get off that safety net at some point. But the beginning progression for any individuals, do they understand how to get on the wall appropriately? And two, do they have enough strength to body weight ratio strength to be able to do that on their own? So the easiest and quickest way to do that is to teach an athlete how to quickly wall walk into the wall upside down. This is a great quick assessment tool for both the athlete and the coach to see, do they have enough base strength to hold themselves, invert them, stack their hips over their shoulders appropriately and for long periods of time. We believe 30 seconds to a minute done at ease should be the marker for that test. Now, once that has been performed and the athlete can perform that with ease, step two is we have to teach them how to kick themselves upside down. This itself is its skill. One of the things that we try to do is ensure the athletes that we'll spot them as needed when they're first learning this exercise, but ultimately they have to learn how to kick themselves up themselves. With the kick, we really identify what's happening with the legs and the hip as a windmill effect, that the one foot kicks up first, the second foot kicks up first, and the hips follow. Those three things have to happen at that order and as fast as possible. When those things are performed, the athlete can smoothly invert themselves upside down. Now, if a few of those things are performed but something is lacking, they'll never make it. Meaning, they can kick both feet up as fast as they want, but if their hip does not follow directly behind them, they will never be able to invert themselves, no matter how strong they are. There's also some other mechanics for a static start versus a dynamic start. In a dynamic start, the athlete takes a few steps away from the wall, walks into the wall, and kicks up. A static start is where the athlete places their hands on the ground first and kicks themselves up. From a momentum standpoint, the static start is a little bit difficult because there's very little momentum, but it provides 100% accuracy of hand placement. On the other end, the dynamic start is going to allow the athlete to walk in with momentum, but they won't have as much accuracy with hand placement because there's a millisecond that they have to place their hands on the ground before they kick up. So as a coach, you want to recognize the differences between those two starts and which one's going to best fit the athlete. From there, we want to build the strength the same way. We believe that 30 seconds to a minute kicked upside down should be the base strength before we start adding any fancy exercises. But as we recognize that hold is an isometric contraction, but eventually we want to move to a different skill through a concentric contraction where the athlete is moving through some type of range of motion. Whether that's 2 inches or 4 inches, we want to develop that increase of range of motion over time. We also believe that complementing a static hold with some barbell presses allows the athlete to get best of both worlds for someone who doesn't have full range of motion. In conditioning work, we really want to be aware that there needs to be a way to standardize the range of motion so there's no accidental cheating going on, meaning the athlete, it gets too hard for the athlete, so they immediately shortchange the range of motion. We believe range of motion should never be shortchanged in any manner. If an individual feels like they have to constantly change the range of motion, we know something is wrong. They're doing too much reps, they're going too fast, they're not resting enough, the weight's too heavy. We know something is going wrong and we need to fix those things immediately. We standardize the range of motion upside down by using ab mats. We believe that the most ab mats that anyone should use upside down is 2. If an individual has to use more than 2 ab mats, they're just not ready enough to move themselves upside down. And for those individuals, we believe that complementation of the static handstand hold with standing barbell presses is a great progression over time. And ultimately, it's important to recognize, coaches, that our goal is improved fitness. That if individuals are using the same standard a year, 2, 3 years from now, they are not improving. Not only do we have to acknowledge that as coaches, we have to acknowledge that to the individual, that something is not working here. Either they're not training the movement consistent enough to improve, or they're not using a challenging enough modification to actually see improvement. Either case, it's a conversation that we need to have with the athlete if we're going to be honest and open with them and build the trust that they require from us. Thanks for listening.